In the pre-dawn hours of late August 1831, an eerie calm cloaked the plantations of Southampton County, Virginia. Enslaved preacher Nat Turner, a self-proclaimed prophet, was about to shatter that silence. On the night of August the 21st to the 22nd, Turner and a handful of fellow bondsmen rose up and launched the deadliest slave revolt in US history. By the following day's end, they had cut down approximately 55 white men, women and children, moving from farm to farm in a bloody quest for freedom. The land of slavery, long haunted by the fear of uprisings, was finally engulfed in the very rebellion that slaveholders had dreaded. Nat Turner was born enslaved on the 2nd of October 1800 in rural Southampton County, a place where black people outnumbered whites amid the tobacco fields and woods. From a young age, Turner stood apart. He learned to read and write despite the prohibitions of Virginia's slave codes, poring over the Bible by dim firelight. Those around him sensed an uncommon intellect and destiny. Turner's spiritual devotion earned him a reputation as the prophet among fellow enslaved people. He preached secret sermons beneath starry night skies promising redemption. At age 21, Turner even escaped his enslavement for a month, wandering the woods, but he returned voluntarily after a strange revelation. A voice he believed was the Holy Spirit commanding him to go back and await a higher calling. Obedient to this vision, Turner chose to remain in chains for the purpose of serving the Spirit more fully, trusting that God had appointed him for a mission beyond mere earthly freedom. From 1825 onward, Nat Turner was seized by a series of vivid apocalyptic visions that convinced him God was preparing him to act. In one early vision, he beheld white spirits and black spirits engaged in battle under a darkened sky. The thunder rolled in the heavens and blood flowed in streams, he recalled. A voice spoke to him from this storm of prophecy. Such is your luck, such you are called to see, and let it come rough or smooth, you must surely bear it. Turner understood this to mean he must endure whatever trials came, for he was chosen to witness a great upheaval. By 1831, Turner was waiting intently for a heavenly signal to ignite the prophesied uprising. He thought that God used the natural world as a backdrop for signs and omens, and that year the heavens did not disappoint. On February the 12th, 1831, a solar eclipse blotted out the sun over Virginia. Turner envisioned a black man's hand reaching over the sun, to him an unmistakable divine command to prepare for rebellion. He took this eclipse as the last sign that the hour of liberation was at hand. Although illness delayed his initial plan to rise on the 4th of July, symbolically Independence Day, a second strange event on the 13th of August, the sun appearing bluish-green in the sky, convinced Turner not to wait any longer. The final seal was broken. The prophet of Southampton was ready to unleash the storm. Late on the 21st of August 1831, Nat Turner met with a small group of trusted men under the cover of woods and night. They ate a last meal together, roasted pig and brandy, steeling themselves for the violent task ahead. Turner had shared his great work with only a few confidants to avoid betrayal. As midnight passed into the early hours of August the 22nd, the rebels crept toward the house of Turner's enslaver, Joseph Travis, where Nat had labored in relative favor. They carried axes, hatchets, knives, and heavy clubs, common tools turned into weapons of righteous wrath. Fueled by a mix of anger, desperation, and Turner's fierce spiritual conviction, the rebel band moved through the county as dawn broke. Farm by farm, they went house to house, freeing every slave they could and killing every white person they encountered. For about 48 hours, chaos and fear reigned over Southampton. Turner's rebels struck with lethal surprise, then faded into the woods before militias could muster. One contemporary report noted that at first their indiscriminate slaughter of white families was intentional, a tactic to spread panic, though Turner claimed they planned to spare the poor whites once they had a strong foothold. Indeed, a couple of homesteads were bypassed as Turner believed those white inhabitants, quote, thought no better of themselves than Negroes. But by the second day, armed white militias and vigilante groups were converging. The rebellion met its bloody end on the morning of August the 23rd, 1831, at Belmont Plantation, where state militia forces finally surrounded and overwhelmed the insurgents. The insurrection was effectively crushed in battle, with several dozen rebels killed or captured. In total, the rebels had slaughtered between 55 and 65 people before being defeated, making Nat Turner's uprising the deadliest slave revolt in American history. Nat Turner himself, however, was nowhere to be found in the aftermath of the final clash. As his comrades were chased down, Turner slipped into the wet, tangled forests and marshes of Southampton. For 6 weeks, the man whose name now terrified whites across the South hid in the countryside, evading an intense manhunt. He reportedly sheltered in holes dug under fence rails and rotting trees. One hiding spot later grimly dubbed Nat's Cave. Alone and hungry, he sustained himself on wild berries and scraps while militias combed every plantation. His continued freedom for so long only amplified the aura of ghostly dread around his figure. On the 30th of October 1831, the long hunt for Nat Turner finally ended. A local farmer named Benjamin Phipps spotted a movement in the brush and found Turner huddled in a shallow dugout camouflaged with pine branches, exhausted, emaciated, and resigned. Turner surrendered without resistance. By the next day, he was shackled in the county jail at Jerusalem, Virginia, the very town he had been marching toward during the revolt. Nat Turner's trial was swift and formal. On the 5th of November 1831, he was brought before Southampton County Court and charged with conspiring to rebel and making insurrection. Unsurprisingly, he was convicted and sentenced to death. In jail, Turner was visited by attorney Thomas R. Gray, to whom he recounted his life and the motives for the uprising. Gray published these jailhouse recollections as The Confessions of Nat Turner within weeks, ensuring Turner's story, in his own uncompromising words, would spread. Nearly 2 centuries later, scholars still debate Nat Turner's legacy, but his revolt is still widely acknowledged as perhaps the most significant slave uprising in American history. Through blood and fire, Nat Turner's rebellion etched an indelible mark on the history of slavery and its overthrow, a terrifying beacon that illuminated the moral rot of bondage and a cry for justice that still reverberates through time.